Hey, you guys, welcome back to Listen Bitch Presents Tell Me Why You're Special. You guys know I'm going to tell you this is the arena where pressure doesn't break you, it shows us who you are. Okay. The truth is, anyone can lead when things are easy, but when everything hits the fan, okay, that's where you find out who you really are. And through all of it, God doesn't step back, He steps in. He's refining you, strengthening you, calling more out of you than you thought you had in you. So whatever you've been through, it's not just something you survived, it's something you're meant to use. And I want to get into that today. Today I have Savio Clemente. He works with leaders under pressure. Imagine that. He has lived through it himself more than once, and you guys don't want me telling his story. So I just want to say I'm so happy, Savio, that you came and you're willing to sit in the hot seat today. If you've heard my show out the gate, you know I'm going to ask you for your elevator pitch and tell me what makes you special, darling.
Mm. Well, Brendan, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me on your show.
Yeah.
And I love the unique and aggressive name of the
Thank
show.
you. Thank you.
What makes me unique is that circumstances has afforded me the title of a two-time cancer survivor. And with that, I don't speak about the wound, I speak about the walk. What
Yes.
happens after?
Yeah. In my book, that makes you a qualified badass. Okay. Because I'm all about like, let's not be soft. Let's be conquerors. Let's be like, let's grab life by the balls and do the thing. And you did that twice. And I think that's incredible. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So my lane is healthcare leadership. And so
Yeah.
it's really about focusing on not what happens when the crisis happens, but what
Yeah.
happens after the crisis when your operating system, your internal world no longer
Yeah.
works, but you have to still perform. And so that's the phase I study in. My background is I'm a journalist. At this point, I've interviewed over 2,000 leaders, change makers, even celebrities.
That's
And the core element
incredible.
through all that is this idea of not only presence, not only authenticity,
Yeah.
but leading through humility.
Yeah. I love that so much. And, there's no pressure here for me not to screw up today because you're literally a professional. So don't worry, I'm not sweating bullets over here, you guys. I'm not panicking a little. My hands aren't sweating. It's fine. Um, but yeah, so you're working with leaders like after the disruption. And my question is why does that phase sometimes seem harder than the actual crisis itself?
I think when it comes to the actual crisis, you have teams. Like, for example, my medical journey. So I had cancer in 2014. It was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I was cancer free for a decade. And then in June of 2024, literally 10 years to the day, the cancer returned. And at that point, I had a whole bunch of care
Yeah.
from two separate 3-day stays in the hospital to 29 days in the hospital again for a stem cell transplant to then doing physical therapy, to then also doing an immunotherapy for 5 months. I had tons of care. So the crisis was managed by other people.
Okay.
When you're out of crisis,
Yeah.
when they say, for example, and I feel very fortunate and
Uh
blessed
huh.
that I got a complete response to treatment or a complete remission, which I don't use the word remission anymore
Yeah.
because of what it connotes.
Yeah.
You don't have that. You have to fend for yourself because at that point they did their job. And so
Yeah.
now the problem is how do you recover? And so I dovetail that with the leaders that I talk to, especially
Yeah.
healthcare leaders that I talk to, who want to get back to what things were, but you can't.
Right.
So you have to find not only a new normal, but you have to find a new way forward.
Yeah. Savio, that makes a lot of sense. And I know this is like way off topic, but it's my brain. But it's a lot like kind of, everybody shows up for the funeral. And then when like the grieving actually starts, there's nobody there. And I feel like that happens so much. Like everybody's there for the emergency. And then I feel that. I think that is relatable in a lot of areas in life.
Yeah.
Um, what is happening to people's minds when they have just been crushed under pressure for so long? What is happening?
Yeah. So I work mostly with leaders, but let's just break this down.
Yeah.
It could be anyone,
Yeah.
leader of your own home, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's signals and things that get sent to you. There's overwhelm that happens. And so how do you turn that actionable drama and trauma into
Mhm.
clarity and strategic advantage? What do you do? And so there's many tools at our disposal. We have access to a lot nowadays.
Yeah.
But I would say the first one is self-regulation. how do you regulate yourself in general? If it's something that's troubling you in the mind,
Yeah.
do a deep dive. Do just vomit all that information out on a paper or on a screen, and then do something really radical. Have a psychological distancing, they call it that, where you're separating yourself from the problem to a degree. Now, don't want to get in trouble with psychologists and therapists
Yeah.
out here. I'm not saying detachment and I'm not saying disassociation.
Yeah.
I'm just saying allow yourself some breathing space.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, which really was profound for me, because I spent 29 days in the hospital in a quarantine room, I lost 26 pounds, by the way.
Wow.
Um, in that process, I had two things, Brandon, at my disposal that were free and easily accessible. I had
Yeah.
silence and I had stillness.
I don't know what either of those are. I'm a mom of six. I don't know
Okay.
what that
Well,
is.
yeah. Okay. So there you go. So
But
I was
that's
given a gift then,
incredible.
basically.
Yes.
And I think in that moment, what I call whatever your belief system is, a
Yeah.
spiritual exile. It was a
Yeah.
bona fide spiritual exile for me, for
Yes.
sure. I knew that I could rely on that for not only safety, because that's what we all crave,
Yes.
safety, but I also could rely on that as a cornerstone to the greater Savio that was suffering in the hospital bed,
Right.
the greater me, whatever that is, whatever your belief is on that.
Yeah.
And so for me, that gave me not only refuge, but it gave me power.
That's amazing. I love that. And silence does wonders for I think that's like 90% of everybody that's struggling right now. It's a lot of it because of this. Because they have never been in a silent room for as long as they can remember. Like when is the last time, that anyone in any position, anything, ever just took time out to sit in a room quietly for an hour without background noise, without a phone, without I think that would work wonders if people actually put that into practice.
And
Yeah.
for me, I grew up Catholic. I was a good old altar boy for 6 years in
Okay.
Catholic elementary school.
Yeah.
Then I went to college in the big city, New York City, and
Yeah.
I studied and explored different belief systems, all the way from Buddhism to Vedic
Yeah.
philosophy. And the Eastern philosophies always talk about always try to mirror yourself to nature.
Yeah.
Nature doesn't rush, it has its own timeline. So
Yeah.
the river flows, even
Yeah.
though there's rocks that abut it and may stop it from time to time, it knows its direction. Just like a seed, you can't unearth a seed and see if it's
Yeah.
germinating. It does its own thing. The roots grow underneath the soil.
Right.
And so, really, the key there is to take a beat,
Yeah.
take a breath. Self regulation, you could do it many different ways:
Yeah.
journaling, meditation, walking, listening to your favorite instrumentals, music,
Yeah.
listening to your favorite jam, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Have that reprieve with yourself because that's very, very important.
Yeah. In your bio, I do think all that is important, and I think it's incredible that you studied all of that. I went down the rabbit hole of studying different religions and spiritual practices, and I think a lot of them have a common thread, and it is that self reflection, the mirror. But I love that. And then my brain, because I've been thinking about this. You mentioned cognitive fatigue, and like I haven't heard that before. I feel like I know what it is as a mom of six. I feel fatigued all the time. But like, how does that affect people on a day to day, and especially like you know if you're high functioning and you're working with these powerful people that are making big decisions, how is that showing up when they need to be deciding things quickly?
So obviously, we all ignore the signals and the patterns, but they
Yeah.
speak to us, whatever the case may be. And that's why I think it's very important to get down to self. But the healthcare leaders I talk to, they
Yeah.
are high stakes. It's not only about their profession, they
Yeah.
have another human being that they're caring for.
Yeah.
So that's serious. And so the cognitive load or the cognitive fatigue is really this like overwhelming sensation that like I have to check all boxes. I have to make sure that
Yeah.
doesn't work. Then I have to deal with the bureaucratic stuff. Then I have to deal, especially if you're in a hospital system.
Yep.
If you're a fan like I am of the show The Pit on HBO Max, I'm telling
I've
you,
not heard of it.
Brandon, when
Okay.
I watch that show, my nervous system is a complete wreck. And I try, I mean, like you're talking to me, right? I seem very balanced and focused, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, but I love the show because it's exactly, unfortunately, what doctors have to go to, especially in the ER.
I'm writing down the pit right now because I'm like,
Oh,
I
it's
want to see
amazing.
what this is.
It's
Okay.
amazing show. It actually won Emmys and it's
That's
just great.
awesome.
Yeah. Noah
Check
Wild's
it out.
fantastic in it and his cast. But the fatigue really comes to the point where then leads to the classic word burnout.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get to that point because when you get to that point, you become apathetic, you become despondent, and then you're just no good not only to your team and the organization,
Yeah.
you're no good to yourself, and you're
Right.
certainly no good to your patients.
Yeah.
And so I think the number one thing is to really figure out for yourself, how do I come back to clarity and composure? And I speak a little bit in my TEDx talks. I've done a TEDx talk called 7 Minutes to Wellness, How
Yeah.
to Love Your Inner Stranger. And we can delve a little bit more if you want. But
Yeah.
that's it's the stranger is, at least for me, that young child that never felt rooted. I always felt like a
Yes.
wanderer.
Yeah.
I mean, even some kid in high school used to call me no nomad. Like used to say that to me
Nomad.
all the time. He used to call me that, and I was
Oh.
like, it wasn't really a positive thing, but we were
Yeah.
friends. It's just something he
Yeah.
said because I always seemed like I just was kind of displaced in a way.
Yeah. Well, that's the cool thing. I think the coolest kids always stand out in the weirdest way because I was the
Yeah,
weird kid too. So I'm totally fine with that. We end up killing it later, right? That's our time to shine. Um,
absolutely.
but that's a huge cost. Like if you're looking at the analysis of that, of a leader that is in that kind of situation, in that high pressure, making decisions when they're mentally drained. And I have watched doctor shows. I couldn't think of one, but they all seem stressed the hell out. And I'm like, okay, like, is this real life? I've never spent time in hospitals. I had 6 C-sections. It was easy peasy, in and out, right? Like, I've never seen it in action personally, but I imagine like that's a heavy price, and then you're gonna beat yourself up more because like you're stressed out, and then you're like, okay, now you have to really be on point, and that's gonna stress you out more. Like it, that seems like a very vicious loop.
100%. And then you have to realize they have responsibilities, so they will have to perform. They can't just like
Yeah,
take a 5 minute break,
yeah,
and they want to regain the clarity and the composure, but because
yeah,
it isn't a luxury.
yeah.
So how do they make that breakthrough? How do they un
That's what I want to know. How do you know that you're not thinking clearly anymore? Like, how do we solve this? What are you doing to help them? That's what I want to know. They need you.
Yeah. Well, the key there is from my lived experience, right? So in
Yeah,
my TEDx talk, I have a little quick framework. We all know the word aloha. Aloha
yeah,
means hello
yeah,
in Hawaiian. And so the acronym is very simple. A stands for acknowledge. Acknowledge where you are. Like, don't pretend if you have to do like a vomit of what's happening in the
yeah.
brain and the mind and the heart, do it. L stands for listening. So in Hawaiian healing, there's something called Huna healing. And in Huna healing, they believe that the body speaks to us in sensations, in movement, in energy. And so they believe in Huna healing, you can actually speak to those body parts. You can speak to the head, heart, and gut, which I
Yeah.
call the three brains. You can speak to it because it gives you information,
Yeah.
it facilitates something. O stands for opening. So open yourself up no matter what your beliefs and stuff are, because you're just exploring self. You're not
Yeah.
doing anything that's dangerous. H stands for harnessing. So don't be afraid to harness that information, that you're getting. Try to make the connections and see if it actually works. And then A stands for acting, but it's with the caveat because you have to have the courage to act. And so I
Oh,
always say, whatever those tools that you have at your disposal, breathing, journaling,
yeah.
meditation, 5 minute break, whatever the case may be, try to always come back to yourself because if you can't serve yourself, you're certainly not going to be able
Yeah.
to serve other people.
Yeah. For someone listening right now, what is, if they're like, oh, I feel overwhelmed, because, my mom brain is relating to this like hardcore. Am I in an emergency room? No. But lives are at stake. Okay. I got to
Yeah.
keep these guys alive one way or another. Um, and like what is something that someone listening can do, you know, right now in that moment, you know, aloha's too much for them to just grasp right now. What's the
Okay.
reset if right now they're just completely overwhelmed?
Sure. So everyone knows about the word resilience, right? Bounce
Yeah.
back. Everyone wants
Hmm.
to bounce back.
Yeah.
But my life and my experience has taught me, well, why don't we call it adaptive resilience? When you're in the moment, like for me, I was in the shit. Okay. I was in it.
Yeah.
How do you become flexible? How do you become curious? How do you create strategies and things from it? So allow yourself not only that psychological distance, but do something where a lot of people at this point okay, let's just say it's a learned experience. So, for example, a long time ago, we were always taught that intelligence was the number one factor to have. It's the
Yeah.
number one quality to have. Then we were taught, no, 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 emotional intelligence is
Yeah.
that's the one.
They're
But
all the
now
same
it's
thing.
actually the research has shown it's metacognition. It's the thinking of the thinking.
Ooh.
So it's using psychological distancing, but still allowing yourself to parse out that. So your role, let's say as a doctor,
Yeah.
healthcare leader, is
Yep.
great and wonderful. People rely on you. You're a leader because people want to emulate you, people want to follow you, people want to do
Yeah.
the things. But you have to allow yourself to have humility and allow yourself to learn and be curious
Yeah.
in the process. So whatever that is for you, I can't dictate it because I don't want to be prescriptive here. I could
Yeah.
mention the things I mentioned in my keynotes, but at the end of the day, it has to serve the individual, not the whole.
Right. Right. That makes a lot of sense. Um, so my next question that I'm thinking, you've interviewed thousands of leaders. Is there something that you can see that they have in common, the ones that really separate the ones that handle pressure well versus the ones that you can kind of tell like, oh, they're just not going to quite get it.
I, I think this answer would be twofold. Initially, what
Okay.
I would say to you is that there's a level of humility, but I touched upon that already. So
Yes.
that's a trait that has to be cultivated over time. No one can
Yeah.
give you humility. It's something that you have to experience.
Yeah.
But I will say that maybe another person might answer this and say, "Oh, you have to be authentic, right?" But what does that really
Yeah.
mean if you're someone who's not humble? How can you be authentic if you're not, if you feel that you need to be in a
If it's
role?
not a
So I
natural, yeah.
so I think for me, if I was to answer that question right now in the moment, it would
Yeah.
be have an adventurous spirit with it. A
Ah.
lot of the leaders, they feel like their trajectory of where they need to go is only focused on the professional aspect.
Yeah.
That's their definition. That's the armor that they hold. That's who they present the world to be. But if you have an adventurous spirit, then you allow yourself to, in the moment and outside of the moment, see that life is a series of experiences.
Yeah.
And some are shitty, like the one I
Yeah.
went through
Yeah.
twice,
Yeah.
and some are beautiful and rosy. But we're never guaranteed whatever the great mystery is, whatever
Yeah.
your belief is,
Mhm.
we're never really told exactly how to live it. We're just told how to
Yeah.
be it.
That's it. And we came here for the human experience. We came here because we wanted to feel the things. And how do you ever know what really sucks unless you go through something really great? And if you don't ever experience something great, how do you know, when the world's gone to shit, really? Like you just can't. We needed it all. And I say that because I think that, you know, whatever you believe, obviously for me, it's Jesus died for me and everything he ever did has lined up in this moment for me, and I knew he knew I was going to remember who I was. No matter what life threw at me, how many times people tried to hurt me, he's like, you're going to remember, and then you're going to tell everybody about me. And now I'm like, hell yeah, I remember now. Like, I get it. But so much of that is probably connected to a lot of things in the world. If you could just remember who you were meant to be here, and that was someone who wanted that full on experience. I love that. Um,
Yeah.
and the high pressure stuff, I mean, I think it just takes a special kind of person because, I've done interviews with CEOs that are running these multi-million-dollar companies, and, their toxic thing is like, just push through it. Just push through it. And I'm like, you can't really do that in a hospital, can you?
No, and there was something very, very wise that Oprah Winfrey once said a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And she said, life will throw you a pebble, then will throw you a rock, and then it will throw you a boulder.
Yeah.
And once it throws you a boulder, it's hard to move that boulder.
Yeah.
So maybe the key is to just be fully aware of what's happening.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Do you think, especially in this place, in the space that you're working in, does that pressure kind of make it really fast to see where the weakness is in a team?
100%. I mean, the adage is you are only as strong as your weakest link, but I would say that that's not always true. I
Yeah.
think you're only as strong as what you expect your team to be.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference, there's a nuance between the two.
Yeah.
I also think as well, there's so much disruption, Brandon, right now. There's
Right.
political disruption, social
Uh-huh.
disruption, there's technological disruption with AI. And I
Everything.
think we have to remember where is our center?
Mhm.
Where's our center?
Yeah. And I mean that disruption, I see it. I'm a part of it. I am, I have a podcast that's all about it. I definitely feel that, and I think it's become more than political. I think we have like morality issues in the world right now. Like, we have a strong disagreement on morals and values. And I actually want to ask you, get a little put my tinfoil hat on a little bit, okay?
Okay.
Savio, in my experience, I think you're an incredible gift. You have an incredible story here. But in my experience, big pharma and, medicine, like it's all a business and it's structured as a business almost first. So you're talking about the bureaucrats that they have to deal with and the red tape. And it's always going to be some CEO, or we've got to, protect someone's interest in the hospital. And like, how much of that pressure is really affecting doctors just getting to be doctors, to like actually care about people rather than, we have to protect our biggest donor, his interests, or I don't know. I imagine it's there's probably a lot of corruption and next to a lot of incredible people. So how do those doctors like really handle it? The ones that get it, right? The ones that are centered, the ones that are like, man, I really care about my patients, but this guy's breathing down my neck.
Yeah. So I recently just did an interview with a chief medical officer named Dr. Klasko, and in it he mentions there's about over 934 million, sorry, billion dollars in waste in the healthcare system.
Oh
So the healthcare system in the US is
gosh.
broken. It's
It's
definitely broken.
broken. Yeah.
It is. But that doesn't necessarily mean there's some good, well-intentioned and well-hearted people.
Yeah.
I knew for me, if anyone's listening and watching this,
Yeah.
I knew for me the path to healing, especially a second time,
Yeah.
was the middle way. I
Yeah.
needed the medicines, I needed the drugs, I needed that. But I also knew,
Yeah.
Brandon, that I needed to rely. I'm a board certified wellness coach beyond being a keynote speaker and a journalist.
Yeah.
I also knew I wanted to integrate those. So I did those as part of my wellness and
Yes.
healing practice.
I
I explored
agree.
everything, Brandon,
Yeah.
from ecstatic dancing,
Yeah.
literally by myself barefoot, to like
Yeah.
internal family systems where other people would emulate different parts of self in
That's
front of me and I
amazing.
would observe it.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't do was psychedelics because I didn't want to
Yeah.
open that door. Once you
Yeah.
open a door, any door in life, you have to be responsible for what the door shows you. And
Exactly.
so I didn't want to go there. So to answer your question,
Yeah.
I think it's a seesaw. I
Yep.
don't think we've balanced it, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't think it can be balanced so quickly. And I
Yeah.
think what ends up happening is it's siloed. There's so much red tape and bureaucratic information.
Yeah.
The healthcare system is siloed and the wellness system is siloed. They don't talk to one another. No one believes one another. And I
Yeah.
get it. Things
Yeah.
have to be verified and validated.
Yeah.
But but think about ancient civilizations in the past. They didn't
Yeah.
have modern medicine. So
No.
how did they heal?
Right.
How did they do what they
Right.
needed to do? Right? So I
Yeah.
think there needs to be some open-mindedness with that. But
Yeah.
that interview with Dr. Klasko really opened my eyes. This idea of
That's
billions of
amazing.
dollars in waste.
Yeah. That's what you're saying though. What you did, I think, taking everything. I can't imagine. You hear these stories of someone like, gets cancer and they're dead. They just find out and they're dead in like 3 months. You know what I mean? And I think from my experience, what I know to be true is that your mental capacity and your emotional state will have a lot to do with your healing. I feel like the minute you hear those words, you can either own it and be like, "Yep, okay, I'm dying. That's it. I give up." Or you can do the things like you did and find that place outside of yourself to know you're good. So I think there has to be a balance.
100%.
Absolutely, of those worlds have to collide where we can understand that there are miracles in medicine. There is other stuff at work, in
I
this
think
process.
I think anything in life, whether that's a medical situation, mine's
Yeah.
probably the worst you could probably have, right? So
Yeah.
let's just say your problem is not a medical situation.
Yeah.
It could be relational,
Yeah.
you and a spouse or a partner or whatever. It could be something familiar, like your family.
Yeah.
It could be anything. What I'm basically saying is, I think when we try to be too rigid,
Yeah.
we don't allow the formations of life to show us
Take
what's
place.
available
Yeah.
because we're rigid in just that idea of truth. And truth, there's a big T with the big truth and a
Yeah.
small t with the small truth. And I think the more you are aware and awake, as long as it doesn't sort of pass over your boundaries, we all should have boundaries. We all should have
Right.
ways where people shouldn't cross. As long as it doesn't do
Right.
that, just be open to what's available at the moment.
Right. I love that. And I just have to say, like, I feel like this show, getting to meet with people like you, Savio, this is God working on me because he has stretched me because of such the divide in the world. Like, I hardened my heart to a lot of things, and I'm like, I will not have these conversations. I don't want to talk to other people about other stuff. And here I am, like I'm loving this. I'm into this conversation, and I don't think we have the same religious beliefs. And like I would have been so closed off like 6 months ago, and God is like, "No. Like you I'm sorry. Like you need to grow up."
Well,
And
I'm
he
I'm
has
glad you
stretched me. I love it.
I'm glad you said that because I mean I'll share with you. I have a
Yeah.
sibling. I have two siblings,
Yeah.
and she lives in California, and she's a complete different political persuasion as me.
Yeah.
And it was tense for a few years. I'm
Yeah.
not going to lie, but I realized something. We're
Yeah.
never going to come to an agreement.
No.
So what can we agree on?
Yeah.
We love both our parents. They're still alive. We love them. We want
Yeah.
to make sure they're good.
Yeah.
We love food and we love travel. So let's focus on those things because I can't move her and she certainly can't move me, right? I know for me what feels right, not only for my life, but
Yes.
for other people's life. You
Yeah.
cannot move me from that
Yeah.
because that to me is a blemish on my ability
Yes.
to feel whole and connected to the rest of humanity.
Yeah.
But we can do that. So I think it's beautiful
Yeah.
that you
No,
invited
and
me and that
you
you're willing
know,
to stretch.
I love it. And it's been so many conversations where I can feel, I'm like knowing it's not in alignment, and I can still respect the conversation and the place that you are, and I can see the beauty in who you are and the work that you're doing. So it's been incredible. This is a very selfish show. I just want the
Love
world
it.
to know I do this for myself because number one, I learn something every conversation I have. And number two, like I'm being molded into the greatest version of myself by, being able to have that understanding and knowing like, yeah, do I know God created you in his image? Absolutely. But if I shut down and I'm like, oh, nothing you believe is accurate. This is right. This is right. This is right. Nah. But I could still stick to like, a lot of core values that I have and a lot of morals and that boundary. Like I can hold that respectfully when this is an easy conversation, right? It's very easy. This isn't one of those red flags for me where I would be like, no. So I this is so fabulous, but even the red flag one, it's, that holding that boundary of just the respectful. I love that you're doing that with your sister. I
Yeah, I mean,
unfortunately my husband's family is pretty broken because of politics, and
yeah,
I'm
I mean,
sad
you
for
can
him.
agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I think when it bleeds into your boundary, that's when you need to say something. Like for me,
Yeah.
for example, my boundary when it bleeds is when I see that it's affecting other people who don't have the wherewithal, don't have the power, don't
Yeah.
have the knowledge, don't have the experience I do, and they're feeling like they are being um, hurt by it. That's
Yes.
my boundary. But that's my own boundary, right? That's my personal
Yeah.
boundary. So.
I think that's a fair one to have. So, I want to let's. I don't even know how much time we have left. I forgot to watch the clock, sir. I'm sorry. Like you, the experiences that you have had, not just with everything you went through twice, but like in the industry that you're working in. Um, what did that stuff really teach you about the value of life and what matters in this moment? Was like the biggest defining shift that you had pre-cancer diagnosis to who Savio is today?
I think it's about not dimming my light. And that sounds a little woo-woo,
No, I
and I
like it.
apologize.
Don't. That's
But I think sometimes we tend to be small in the face of others who we think are big.
yeah,
And that bigness could be in any form. It doesn't have to be in business, it could be in any form. And I think the key for me, what it taught me was that I don't have to be small. I can hold my light
yeah.
because in my light, it spreads. So, for example, I've known about 8 people since I got my relapse in June of 2024 who passed away from cancer.
Oh,
This is my second go, and I had a complete response to treatment. Some of them, it was their first go.
yeah,
And so for me, there's people that I follow socially who unfortunately are at that stage where no treatment can help them.
yeah.
And so I could be small and I could dim my light,
Yep.
or I could breathe. I can be present,
Yeah,
acknowledge, and to some degree hold the space for them, whether
yeah,
you call that blessing or not,
yeah.
and just allow myself to feel that as well and not be caught up in it because their path is not mine and my path is
Right,
not theirs.
right. And I imagine, like, is there ever a time where, part of you, I just feel like, that dark part of us, the the voices that rise up are, they're just like, you know, how come you got through this, and you're seeing people die everywhere? And does that give you a different perspective on how to hold that space for them?
I think initially when it hit me in 2014, the first time, I
Yeah.
had massive survivor's guilt. I think when it hit me a second time, all I knew is that I would do everything because healing is not linear.
No.
We have to grab onto whatever we can. It's just
Yeah.
not. And anyone who tells you it is, they're lying because a doctor
Yep.
will tell you we can give you the medicines, but we don't know how your body reacts. Everyone's different. And so
Exactly.
they themselves acknowledge the question mark that's in the room.
Yeah.
And so now I don't really have survivor's guilt. I more have an ability to feel like I have a huge responsibility, not
Yes.
a responsibility like a burden, but a responsibility to just be myself,
Yep.
allow my story and my truth to come, do what I came here to do, express what I came here to express, work with the healthcare leaders who then, because most people say to me, well, why don't you just work with the people? And I'm like, no, I love working with the people, but I'd rather work with leaders, especially in healthcare, because
Yeah.
it trickles down
It
from
does.
them to their team, to the organization,
Hmm.
to their family, to the community. And so I can reach a lot more people in that manner.
Yeah. I love your perspective. I think the work you're doing is tremendous. And I'm going to go ahead and close us out today, if that's okay. Is there a place, if
Absolutely.
someone wants to reach out to you, where can they go? How can they find you if they're like, this guy's it? I want in.
Absolutely. So they can go to my website, Savio P Clemente. It's SAVIOP CLEMENTE. On there, you can see my keynote work. You can see my TEDx talk. I also write every Wednesday a Substack called The Human Resolve because resolve is all we have.
Yes.
And I talk about the head, heart, and gut intelligence and also my interviews. And through that lens of disruption and adversity, how can we go through the walk rather than the wound?
Yeah.
And then if they want to follow me on social media, I'm at every platform at The Human Resolve. And I think I have a couple more keynote slots available. So if anyone wants to have me speak, I'm more than
Get him
happy to
in
do
there.
that.
Yeah, I love that. So this is the part of the show where I get to say what I think makes you special for whatever my opinion is worth. But it's not just that you understand the pressure, it's that you lived through that pressure in such a way that a lot of people couldn't even imagine what it was like. And instead of letting it break you, instead of letting it define the ending of your story, instead of letting it consume you and you're the victim and oh my gosh, why is this happening to me? Oh my gosh, Savio, you turned it into clarity. And you have taken something chaotic and you've turned it into something structured and usable and powerful to reach the most amount of people. And that goes beyond leadership. I think your work and your vision is incredibly blessed. I think that you are a gift to everybody who gets to interact with you. I really think everything you're doing, it's just, I'm in awe. It's amazing. This isn't just theory, like you're really living it. And I think that's what makes you special. And
Oh, that's
to
beautiful.
everyone listening, you guys, pressure isn't the problem, it's how you respond to it. That becomes the problem. And God didn't bring you this far to watch you fold when shit gets hard. You're built inside. You have everything you need to be able to handle the more, to handle what's next, to think clearer, to lead stronger, to be bold, to be grounded, to be magnetic. And I mean, Savio oozes magnetism. I know people are drawn to him, and I need you to remember, you guys, your mess is your message. Even the pressure, even the chaos, the moments where you feel like you're barely holding it together, that's where your growth is, babe. And if you've been feeling that pull to do something more with your voice, to share what you've learned, to actually say something that matters, you don't have to figure that out alone. I created a fancy support group, a podcast support group where I don't gatekeep, okay? But it's a place where, guests come to be on other shows, where other shows come. And if you want to start a show, I spill all the tea. This is a real place where you can start this journey without overthinking every single step. So if it's been on your heart, please come and join me there. If you feel this episode inside of you right now, I need you to not only like and subscribe, I need you to leave a review. And stars are cute, but it's not enough. Savio needs you guys to leave a written review so that the person that will see it because you did that will have access to everything he brings to the table. And we can't reach the people that he needs to reach without you. We just can't do it. So I'm asking you for your help. It's probably like the least selfless, it's an incredible selfless thing to do today. You know, if you're not going to go work with hospital CEOs who are losing their minds with all the crazy, then the least thing you can do is share the show for us. Okay. And listen, if you're ready for the hot seat, come and tell me why you're special. Savio, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brandon. This was beautiful.